Hey there, it's Olivia Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to give you my December wrap-up. I usually slow down at the end of the year, but this year didn't quite happen. I read 10 books and some of them were quite thick, so I'm pretty pleased with my end of the year reading, and I'm just gonna tell you about all of the books. The last book I actually finished, but the first one I'm going to talk about here is Midnight Sun by Stephenie Meyer. I was really looking forward to this because I am a Twilight fan. You've got my Twilight Read It Backwards videos if you want some of my in-depth analytical thoughts of the Twilight series, and I just want to start by saying that the representation of the Quileute tribe is really bad in this one, so I'll leave a link down below where you can learn more about the tribe, the actual tribe, and also donate as they're trying to move to higher ground to be protected from some environmental issues. And yeah, Midnight Sun is Twilight from Edward's point of view, and that's really all there is to say about it. I was quite disappointed in this one simply because I was not a big fan of Edward's point of view. I know that he's an overthinker and such, but it just didn't work for me. I didn't really like it that much, and I felt like it was too long-winded. I felt like some of the parts we already knew in depth from Bella's point of view could have been summarised and a bit glossed over so we could get more focus on those extra scenes and extra moments. I did enjoy the extra scenes and the extra moments and how we got to learn a lot more about characters I love, such as Jasper and Alice, see a bit more of Charlie, and also just experience things with Edward's ability to read people's minds. Also love getting to know more about Emmett actually. And I have a full vlog of this that I'm sitting on and just need to edit, where you're going to get every single one of my thoughts as I was reading, kind of read it backwards Twilight style, but then for Midnight Sun, so not really reading it backwards. It's coming, it'll probably come January 18th or something like that, but yeah, you'll hear more about me and my thoughts on Midnight Sun. But overall, I found it a little bit disappointing and just mediocre. I don't think it's one that I would ever reread, and it's my least favourite from all four of the main saga books. I put this one at the lowest ranking, even below New Moon. Up next, I've got to talk about The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna, and I buddy read this one with Lena from Lena Reads, so thank you so much for buddy reading with me. It was so nice to read with you, and she was really nice and patient because I was a bit of a reading mess these last few months, and this is what the final cover looks like because this is an art copy, which I was not sent for review. I won this in a giveaway, just so that we're clear on that. So this one follows 16-year-old Decca, and where she's from, there's always this ceremony that's done to prove that they have the right kind of blood. If you have the wrong kind of blood, you get exiled and you are supposed to be killed, and it turns out that she has the wrong kind of blood. But before anything can go wrong, she gets whisked away by a certain someone who says that she can join an army which will be better for her, and it's an army of girls just like her. I thought this book was okay. I did like it, but I didn't love it. I felt like it had quite a bit of a training montage, and I'm not a huge fan of the long training montages when you have a gift, power or ability that you need to train and hone and learn about. I know some people really like that in their fantasy books, so if you like a long training montage, you are going to like the middle part of this book, but for me that part was a bit slow. I also felt like it was on the younger spectrum of young adult, even younger than I thought it would be, simply by the way that things are worded or the way that the messages and themes of feminism and the way that religion can oppress people, it was kind of on the nose. It was really telling you these themes, and there was less nuance than I would have liked with that, but I feel like for some of the younger audiences that could be really good. I thought it was predictable in some cases. I was able to predict some things, but that didn't impact my enjoyment of the plot. I really liked the female friendships in this one. I think that was the main thing I liked about it, just seeing women supporting women and women who are considered different from other women supporting women. And I did not really like the romance. I felt like it was very unnecessary. It didn't need to be thrown in there, and I didn't really understand why the male characters were necessary. I think if you read this one you'll understand what I mean, but with the female characters having so many abilities and so many powers, I didn't see why the male characters needed to train alongside them. So overall, some mixed feelings. There are definitely some good moments in this one and there were good things about it. It just wasn't the fantasy book that I really would have wanted it to be, and I don't think I'm going to be continuing this series. I also reread Percy Jackson and the Battle of the Labyrinth, which was by Riordan, and it was for my Percy Jackson Read It Backwards, so I've got a longer video with all of my thoughts on this particular book, and I'll just leave it there. You can head over there if you want to hear about it, but just to summarize briefly, I thought this was a fun enough book, but it didn't really have that much depth or that much of a longer plot across the series. I feel like they're very just adventure novels. Each and every book is a different adventure and they don't link up too much until the last one, so I thought it was just okay, and it's one of those books that I feel like I enjoyed most when I read them when I was younger. Then I'm going to talk about the book that I read on Christmas Eve. I decided to read a Christmas middle grade book on Christmas Eve this year. This one was my only 5 stars, my only new favourite this month, and that is The Christmasaurus by Tom Fletcher. So in this one we follow a boy who is a wheelchair user, and he's got a single parent, his dad, and what he wants for Christmas is a real life dinosaur, which is something that's very hard to achieve, and he just goes on a bit of an adventure during Christmas Eve night and Christmas time, and I just thought it was so much fun. It was adorable. It was so creative in its perception of Santa and the North Pole and Christmas, and I like when you take those ideas and you do something creative and inventive with it. I thought that the Trundles were a great family to follow. I loved the dad. I also loved William himself. I feel like the wheelchair rep was done well. This is not an Own Voices book, but I feel like it wasn't about the fact that he's in a wheelchair, it's just we happen to have a main character who is in a wheelchair, and that's nice to see in a middle grade. It's nice to see represented. The dinosaur was really sweet and cute, and all the parts with him made me smile. Overall, I was just smiling all the way through Christmas Eve because I was reading this book, and I think it has some really nice small messages in there about beliefs and how it's okay if different people believe different things, about kindness and about love, and also just about acceptance. And yeah, I really did enjoy this book, and I really recommend it. Another book that I really enjoyed this month, I read a lot of dark books that weren't very Christmassy or festive, but that's okay. I read The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, and I really enjoyed it. So this one is about Hill House, which is haunted apparently, and this doctor who's interested in the supernatural decides he's going to go to this house and stay there and just see what happens, and he invites 3 people to come along with him, and it's just about their experience in this haunted house. It was so good. I really liked it as a classic because it was readable, and I think it did a good job of framing the narrative and putting the themes in place. It's a slow-paced, quiet kind of horror novel, so don't think contemporary horror, think classic horror. And yeah, I really like the characters. I like the friendship that they had, the banter that these characters had. I wasn't expecting that from a classic, but it was top notch. It was great to read about that friendship. It was great to read about that banter, but it was also great to see the trajectory of the novel and how the character we follow, how her thoughts kind of sour as she goes further along into the experience with the haunting house. And it was just such a good development, and it went so smoothly, and it had that eerie, creepy edge to it. I loved how the house was personified. It was its own character in the book. While the ending was a bit predictable, I could see where it was going, I could see how it was going to end, it was still just such a good journey, and I really enjoyed this. I am going to watch the TV show. I've already watched the first episode. It's very different. So if you've watched the TV series and then you're going to read this, it's going to be a bit different. Okay, the next book is It by Stephen King, and I've already ranted full out about this book in my worst books of 2020 videos. I'll leave a link to that down below, and I won't repeat what I say in that because I feel like I gave a very solid review of my overall thoughts. But yes, this one is about a killer clown in Derry, and the killer clown is killing children, and it's about these children who are trying to stop that clown from doing so, and it goes a little bit into the future as well with them as adults and experiences with the clown. Yeah, I'm not going to repeat what I said before. I do want to touch on black representation, which I did say I was going to touch on in my rant, but I don't have that much more to add. I feel like we have one black character here, and the scene that is the horror to do with the black history in that club, I felt like that was the scariest part of the novel, even scarier than anything that had to happen with the clown. But the second thing I wanted to say is that in this book there's a discussion that the black parents have with the black child about racism, and I just couldn't help but think about the discussion that is had about racism in The Hate U Give between the parents and the children, and then the one in It by Stephen King. And you can see which one is Own Voices so clearly, because this one lacked all of the nuance that that one scene has in The Hate You Give. And it just felt so off to me. I just felt like it wasn't the way that that conversation would go at all. So I wasn't too happy with that. And if you want to hear about my problems with the narrative structure, the female representation, or the direction the book chose to go by the end without spoilers, you can check out my worst video. Up next, we have a non-fiction book that I read in one sitting because it was so readable and so good. And that is Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man by Emmanuel Acho. And I want to say thank you to Book Break for gifting me a review copy of this one. I really enjoyed it. It's basically him answering questions that white people have for him on race. So it's an anti-racism book. I don't think I would recommend this one to you if you've read a whole load of anti-racism fiction before, because it feels like a very good one to start anti-racism non-fiction and books in general. So it's a very good starting point if you want to give something to someone who you think could value from reading some anti-racist literature. I definitely think this could be such a good one to gift, or just a good one to get those conversations going about some of the basic etiquettes, about some of the basic things to think about and do and learn. This is such a good starting point. I thought he was very clear cut on everything. He managed to again make a distinction between when he's talking about his own personal experiences as a black man or when he's talking about history and facts. And he also does mention that while he is a black man and he has his experiences with racism, his experience is not going to be the same as black women or black LGBT plus people, or I don't know, black people who are not African American. He understands that and he mentions that, and I do appreciate when he mentions things that he can't talk on. But what he does do very well is give you a lot of resources. He often gives you websites, books to read, or more things to look into where you can start to be activist and channel some of that energy into making the world a better place for equality, but also for you to learn more and further on topics that he doesn't know. So I appreciated that he also gives you a whole load of resources. I know that he has got a video series that kind of goes along with this book, or where this book originated from, so that's also something you can watch. And yeah, I thought it was a very clear-cut and well done non-fiction book. Two buddy reads more to talk about, and the first one is One Day, which I read with Emily from Novel Novels, and it was really nice to buddy read with her. She reads so much so quickly, and we had great conversations about this book, and I think we felt quite similarly. So One Day follows these two characters, Emma and Dexter, and they meet when they're younger, and then we follow them for one day of each year. So one day in 1999, then one day in 2000, then one day in 2001, and it spans across 20 years. And I had some ups and downs with this book. In the beginning, I was really liking it. I immediately liked the relationship that Emma and Dexter had. I thought their friendship was just so great. It's not the kind of friendship I would experience whatsoever, because their banter and their sense of humor is totally not my own, but I could see how it worked for these two characters, and I really enjoyed seeing it. And then in the middle of the book, it started to drag a little bit. It started to just lose my interest, because it is about the everyday. It is about characters just going through their lives and the ups and downs and the lows and highs of different stages of life. So it did get a little bit draggy, but then by the end it took a little bit of an unexpected twist that I didn't see coming at all, and I think it ended in a very solid and good place. It was very nice, and you get a nostalgic feel at the end of the book simply because you've been with these characters throughout their lives. I think the best thing about it was the friendship in this one, and just how you got to see some really serious things that were going through in their life. It deals a bit with addiction, and as with all of my other wrap-ups, if you're new here, I'll have all of the content warnings in the description box down below for all of these books, for all of the things that you might need a bit of a warning on before reading. And yeah, I thought it was good. It's not a favourite one. I didn't love it, and I have a feeling that this one is going to be a better film than book. I know that there is a film out, but it feels very romantic, you know, casual, everyday film, and I feel like it's going to work much better for the pacing in that format. And I know that the author is also a film director or producer or something, so I feel like that feeds into how this kind of has a film frame to the way it's been written. And then for my last buddy read, I buddy read Swing Time by Zadie Smith with Elena from Elena the Great, and we had lots of insightful discussions about this book and often felt similarly when we were reflecting what we were reading. So that was a really fun buddy read, and I borrowed this book from my older sister, so it's not mine. But Swing Time follows this girl from when she's younger, and it goes through her life, and she's a black girl with one black parent and one white parent, and it's about her experiences as someone who works for a pop star, and the pop star decides to do charity work in Africa, but it's also her experiences with a friend that she has when she's younger. And these two different stories are happening at the same time and are supposed to weave into each other, but I feel like they didn't weave and combine as well as I would have liked. In fact, I really didn't like our main character. She just reads so much like a secondary character rather than a main character. She's very passive to everything that's happening to her, and she doesn't really change or develop. She's so stagnant, and I really have a problem with characters that don't develop from the beginning of the novel to the end of the novel, especially as in the beginning of the novel she's a child and by the end she's an adult, so I would have expected a bit more development. I feel like it also struggled from being a bit too literary. It just reads like they're trying so hard to hit that literary feel when you could have just told a bit more of a straightforward story. You could have trimmed it down a whole lot more. For what the storyline we get is, this book is too long. That said, about all of the technical things I didn't like, I really did appreciate the subject matter and themes in this book. It deals a lot with charity work and aid, and it takes an in-depth look at what that really has an impact on, and if it's actually beneficial, or the ways in which it can be beneficial and the ways in which it's actually harmful, and also the perceptions that we as Westerners have of the poorer countries, the poverty, and how that perspective can be wrong and how their perspective is of us. I thought it did all of that discussion very, very well, and I feel like it's a good one for if you're going to do charity work. I feel like this could be a very good one to read before doing so. So it did spark a lot of interesting discussions, and it has a lot of interesting subject matter, but in terms of reading experience, it was a letdown and wasn't the best one. And then last but not least, I'm going to be talking about a poetic prose book that I listened to on Script. Script is a service where you can listen to as many audiobooks as you want within a month, and I have a link down below if you would like to join Script and get 60 days for free to try it out. It's great. It's got more than just audiobooks, so if you're interested in documentary subscriptions or ebooks, it also has all of that. The audiobook that I listened to was Citizen by Claudia Rankine, and this is a poetry collection, but it's also a bit prosy at some points, and it's about racism. It's mostly about microaggressions that black people experience, and I just related to this one so much. I feel like there were a lot of microaggressions that I could relate to and see as have happened to me, and I also feel like it does a very good job of talking about gaslighting, which is something I feel some people do without realizing that they're doing, and some black people just accept without realizing that they are being gaslit. So it was very interesting reading and opened my mind to gaslighting in different situations, and I feel like if you're trying to learn about how to be more anti-racist and how to recognize these microaggressions when they're happening, this could be a very good one to read. I did look up some Google images of what the pages and the layout were like, because I understand I was listening to a poetry book and I didn't want to miss out on some of the format and structure, and what I did see really pleased me. I feel like it's one that I'm going to buy a physical copy of and reread so I can do some annotations because it looks so good. But there was a special chunk of this book that I really appreciated because I am a tennis fan, and being someone who watches tennis, I don't play, I just watch. I play Wii tennis, but I don't think that counts. Yeah, I'm a tennis fan and I'm a huge Serena Williams fan, and there's a part of this book where she talks about some of the racism that Serena Williams has experienced over her career and how Serena Williams has handled it, and I really appreciated just seeing how Serena Williams is a queen, seeing some acknowledgement of that, but also seeing some acknowledgement of some of the things that she's had to deal with in the past that are just awful that she had to deal with them. And it was a very good discussion. This one was recommended to me by my friend Faye, and they hit it right on the mark. I really did enjoy that book. And there you have it. Those are the 10 books that I read in December and my thoughts and feelings on all of them. Please let me know in the comment section down below if you've read any of these books or what was your favourite read in the month of December. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!